what? Kamala Harris, according to CNN, is mainstream.
Senator Harris is a mainstream candidate. She did lean left early in the primary on a couple of issues, but anyone who tries to paint her as someone who's on the fringe or radical is simply making up a narrative that they want to project onto this ticket instead of evaluating her as a candidate and the race and the state of our politics, which is right now being played on the Democratic side between the 45-yard lines. It's a narrative that Trump wanted desperately and get because he didn't get the matchup he wanted in this race.
Mainstream? Come on, she had a more left-wing record than Bernie Sanders.
Look, you know there are problems in Sweden, there are problems in Denmark, problems in Norway. But when they guarantee health care to all of their people, how much do you pay for a doctor when you go to a doctor?
Like nothing.
Like nothing. That's pretty good. Did you go to college?
I did, yeah.
How much did that cost?
Nothing.
What about childcare in Sweden?
It's almost free.
Okay. That's pretty good. And your rate of childhood poverty in Scandinavia is much lower than it is in the United States. So, I think that those are programs and ideas that we should take a hard look at. And I think there's a lot to admire in what the governments of Sweden and Denmark and Norway and Finland have accomplished.
Great Americans from FDR to John F. Kennedy to others have talked about health care as a right. After decades of talk, now is the time to get it done. I grew up in a family that did not have a lot of money. I spent my entire childhood in a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York. And that meant that my family, at least, we didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't have to worry about rents, going up by 10, 15%, which many Americans do. We believe that rent control is an appropriate tool nationally to tell landlords that they cannot simply jack up their rents to any rate that they want. I do believe that when we talk about public education in America today, in a rapidly changing world, we should have free tuition at public colleges and universities. That should be a right of all Americans, regardless of the income of their families.
Don't believe me? Maybe you believe Newsweek. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's pick for vice presidential running mate, Kamala Harris, was ranked as being more liberal than Democratic Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. According to GovTrack, together they ranked as the most liberal members of the Senate. Harris joined bipartisan bills the least often compared to Senate Democrats, end of quote. And mainstream Kamala Harris refuses to say whether or not she supports packing the Supreme Court.
When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed?
Ditto with her running mate, Joseph R. Biden.
Sir, I've got to ask you about packing the courts, and I know that you said yesterday you aren't going to answer the question until after the election, but this is the number one thing that I've been asked about from viewers in the past couple of days.
Well, you've been asked by the viewers who are probably Republicans who don't want me continuing to talk about what they're doing to the court right now.
Well, sir, don't the voters deserve to know?
No, they don't. I'm not going to play his game. He'd love me to talk about, and I've already said something on court pack. He'd love that to be the discussion instead of what he's doing now. He's about to make a pick in the middle of an election, first time it's ever been done.
That's not actually been the case. In the last century, 5 people have been confirmed in national campaign years. 1 has been stopped by a filibuster, but not 1 nomination has been outright ignored.
Which raises the question, just how unpopular is packing the Supreme Court? Just 32% of adults support increasing the number of Supreme Court justices, a practice referred to as court packing, end of quote. How unpopular is the idea of packing the court? Back in the 30s when FDR tried to pull it, even though the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, his party opposed it. Joe Biden at one time thought it was a bonehead idea.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question, for an entire decade, the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The president had the right to do that. He was totally within his power, and his objective was seen clearly.
So let me describe it in some detail. In the summer of '37, Roosevelt had just come off a landslide victory over Alf Landon. He had a Congress made up of a solid New Dealers, but the 9 old men of the court were thwarting his agenda. In this environment, Roosevelt, and remember this old adage about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, corrupted by power, in my view, unveiled his court-packing plan. He wanted to increase the number of justices to 15, allowing himself to nominate those additional judges. It took an act of courage on the part of his own party institutionally to stand up against this power grab. In May of '37, the Senate Judiciary Committee, a committee controlled by Democrats and supportive of his political ends. I ask unanimous consent. I can see my time's about up. I'd ask unanimous consent that my entire statement be entered in the record, Mr. President. And I conclude by stating to you that the issue will be, will historians studying the actions taken in the spring of '05 look upon the current members of this body as statesmen who place the institution of the Senate above party and politics, or will historians see us as politicians bending to the will of the executives and to political exigency? I, for one, am comfortable with that role that I will play in the upcoming debate, and in my heart, I believe either this is called, there will be at least 6 men and women of rectitude on that side of the body that will not allow the deterioration of the constitutional responsibility of this body. I yield the floor.
Mike Pence at the debate tried once again to get Kamala Harris to say, do you guys intend to pack the court? And she wouldn't answer.
And
Senator Harris.
People, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court.
But not long ago, Harris sang a somewhat different tune.
Are you open to expanding the size of the Supreme Court?
I am open to that discussion.
Senator Harris told me in an interview, actually, that she was absolutely open to doing that. But
this brings us to mainstream Kamala Harris and the Green New Deal.
I am supporting the Green New Deal.
And the cost? And now we come to reparations, where some Democrat House members have already introduced a resolution to establish a commission to study reparations.
If you elected president, would you sign that bill if it came across your desk?
When I am elected president, I will sign that
Finally, this brings us to illegal immigration, or more specifically, illegal entry. Does mainstream Kamala Harris endorse the idea of decriminalizing illegal entry? You betcha.
Topic of decriminalization of the border. If you'd be so kind, raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross a border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we could see them?
Come again?
Senator Harris is a mainstream candidate.
If that's mainstream, it can get you indicted in probably half the states in America. Hey, but at least she's mainstream, right? I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time. Mainstream.